Is that your sticky stick? Well, get it then. The OEX Phoxx II V2 tent I purchased as my very first wild camping tent just over 2 years ago, and I first used it in pretty much this location. We went out in May, I think it was May or April, me and my good friend Ian, and we took our tents and we came to this location and we had one hell of a night. It was a fantastically bad first experience of wild camping. It kind of turned Ian off to wild camping, but it really turned me onto it. And the main reason I got turned on to wild camping was this boy. The OEX Phoxx II is arguably one of the most popular wild camping tents in the UK today. For multiple reasons. There's the fact that it is a two-man tent. It is a very, very good tent. It is very, very easily accessible. You can purchase it from Millets, Blacks, Go Outdoors, Amazon, eBay, everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. It's a great, easy access tent. Also, it is cheap. I think its full retail price is in the region of 180 quid, but I've never seen it at that price. If you go along to OEX, you go along to Millets and so on and so forth, you'll always find this tent cheaper, usually sub £100. When I bought this one, it cost me, I think, £80. I've recently seen it pre-Black Friday sales as cheap as £50, and right now in in Go Outdoors Black Friday sale, they've bumped the price up to £100. I don't get that either, but hey, for the price, you can't argue it's a good tent. The Phoxx II is a very, very low tent. It sits at its highest point on the outside at 95 centimetres, which is very, 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 very low down. Inside, it sits at 90 centimetres. It's not really a sit up and chill out tent. This is my major drawback to this tent. I like a tent that I can sit in. As you can see, it's a coffin style tent with that sloping design. The highest point is at the front end. The low point at the rear end, being so low, means that you really don't have much room to move. This tent opens up from the sides. There's a vestibule here and one on the other side as well, which you can see through the tent there. It is a generous opening, and being that there are two doors, it means that you have access to the tent from either side, which is great during inclement weather. Generally, when you're sitting in a tent, you kind of do it like this. The idea being that you sat in and out of the inner part of the tent, where you can enjoy your surroundings. Inside the tent, however, is a slightly more uncomfortable affair. This tent is definitely a lying down tent. When you're laying down inside the Phoxx II, you find that there's actually plenty of room. You've got a good bit of height above your head when on your side like this, and there's room to move your legs around. One thing that I'm not too keen on straight away is the way that the inner secures. The inner secures via toggles, which is fine. For one-handed operation, not so easy. However, that's not the problem. The problem is actually the length of the toggle strap. Because it is so long, it works its way loose very, very easily. It doesn't take much movement for it to detach. Down at the other end, it's the same affair. So if you're going to be in and out of the tent a lot of the time, you have to be aware that that is a minor annoyance. Fuck's sake. As you can also see, the inner is this orange colour and the outer is this nice green colour. It's often listed as being olive colour, and pictures online show it to be a slightly greeny brown colour, which is not the case. You can see that this tent is not in any way a greeny brown colour. It's definitely dark green. That's fine, I love it. I prefer the dark green to the olivey shitty brown colour anyway. And the orange on the inside is actually quite nice. When you're inside, it gives you a greater feeling of space, which I really like. And is really important in this tent because there isn't any. Now this tent is billed as a 2-person tent. No way. Not comfortably. You'd have to be super good friends with your camping partner for this to be a 2-person tent. It wouldn't be comfortable at all. But for me and for my dog, plenty of room inside. Plenty of room for me, the dog, and all of our gear. However, when it comes to gear, let me show you the vestibules. As you can see, there's quite a bit of space here in the vestibule. Obviously, with the door open, there's loads of space, you've got everything. But the important thing is there's space here. And it's quite generous. Reaching out, I can just touch the edge of the door there. So that gives you a good, 18 inches of vestibule space. And that stretches down the length of the tent where it comes to a point of nothing. So it's a triangular vestibule space. More than enough room for your cooking equipment, for your shoes to sit and so on and so forth. Fantastic, I like that. What I don't like is the lack of dry space. And what I mean by that is, what I would really like to see is the inner part of the tent having a flat piece of material going out to the point, attached with a bit of elastic, so you've got a dry spot that's not dead on the ground. Again, a minor insignificant item, easily cured by simply using a sit pad, which is what I do. I unfold my sit pad, I put it there, and on top of there goes my cup or my stove and so on and so forth. I then put my boots on the other side of the tent in the other vestibule, in which case I'm keeping the 2 items separate, and it just gives me a little bit more room on both sides. I like that. Up here you can see that there's quite a gap between the inner and the outer. Again, another double-edged sword, because it means that the inner does sag down a little bit when you're inside, which restricts the space a little bit. I would have liked to see maybe a hook in the middle which lifts this up just slightly so that you've got a little bit more room on the inside. I don't know how practical it would be to achieve that, but I would have liked to have seen it. However, given that there is plenty of space between the inner and outer, it means that there is also plenty of airflow, which cuts down on any condensation that you'll get inside the main compartment of the tent. Speaking of condensation, I've never really had an issue. And the reason I've not had an issue is because of the fantastic airflow. And I'll get to the airflow in just a moment, but I will show you where condensation does get to be a problem first. Now that is here, and on the corresponding door, which comes all the way down the length of the tent. Condensation between the fly and the inner in the door areas, the vestibule areas, can be pretty bad. It doesn't matter if you've got great airflow, if you're in summer, winter. I've always had condensation on the inner part of the fly, just inside the vestibule. Dave, sorry, I've got Dave here. He's wanting me to play with his sticks. Sorry. Dave, do you like this tent? You like sticks, don't you? You like sticks. On the inside of the tent is pretty much all this solid material. Yet there are areas where it is also mesh, particularly around the head and down by your feet. And that allows air to pass through this vent at the head of the tent around to this covered vent at the foot of the tent. So airflow through the tent is not a problem until it is. So come on then, Captain Kerno Camps, when does airflow through the head and foot of the tent become a problem? Well, let me tell you. If you pitch this tent head or tail into the wind all night long, you will have cold air streaming over your body, and that becomes a problem. Conventionally, we place the head of the tent into the wind and the foot of the tent at the tail of the wind. With this tent, don't do that. Pitch it with the side to the wind. You will be much, much, much warmer. Markings on the outside of the tent, branding, etc., is kept to a minimum. At the head of the tent, you've got the Phoxx II V2 branding and the OEX branding. Other than that, we've just got the X at the foot of the tent. And on the sides, we have a hydrostatic head rating of 5,000 and the fire retardant markings. And that's it. When it comes to branding on the tent, that is all you get. What you do get, if you look very, very, very closely, let's find a good spot. Here we go. Is on the material itself, you can see these tiny little X's, which tie up nicely to the X from the OEX branding. When it comes to guying this tent out, we have these lovely orange guy lines with a round guy line pull thing. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head. I know that's rubbish of me. But you've got 4 of those. You've got 2 at the head of the tent and 2 again at the rear of the tent. Now, while these are extremely strong guy lines, I have had one snap on me, and that was on my second outing with this tent. And that was at Fogging Tour on Dartmoor, my very first Dartmoor wild camp. I'll put a card up there if you want to go and have a look at that one. So when it snapped in the night, I had to replace it with a small piece of paracord that I had. It was green. It was a nightmare to do because we had stormy, horrendously stormy, windy and wet weather. But it certainly got me out of a pinch, and I've left it attached ever since. I've never felt a need to replace it. The tent comes with a bunch of these shepherd's hook aluminium pegs, not the standard cheap nasty steel pegs that you generally get with cheaper tents. They are aluminium, they are quite lightweight, they do a fantastic job, but I don't like them. Well, no, that's not the case. I do like them. I still got those 2. I prefer to use the, what are they called, Y-beam pegs. The MSR Groundhog rip-offs that I got cheaply from Amazon. These kind of things. They're basic, but The reason that I prefer these is quite simply, I've lost a load of those, or I've damaged a couple or bent a couple. These were cheap replacements, and I have one pack of pegs that I use for all of my tents. So all my pegs are in one basket all of the time. As you can tell, this video, I am not teaching you how to pitch it. I am not teaching you how this attaches to that and so on and so forth. None of that really matters. You can go anywhere online and look at that video from somebody else. What you don't get is somebody giving you an honest long-term review. Now let me tell you about my use of this tent. So it was my first tent. I used it on my first ever wild camp. It stood up to fantastically cold and windy weather, and it gave me the taste for wild camping that spurred me on to do more. I used it on my first Dartmoor camp. I used it on fogging tour, and the weather that night was absolutely horrendous. It was quite possibly the worst weather I have ever been wild camping in, and I had a thoroughly enjoyable time. I loved it. Now this tent has not featured in many of my videos, and I'll tell you why. This tent is my bad weather tent. This tent is my really horrendous wet weather tent. In those conditions, I don't film. I don't want to get my camera equipment damaged by rain unnecessarily. There's no need for me to do it. So I don't generally film wet weather camps that much, and when I do, they're not horrendously bad weather camps. If I'm going on a bad weather camp, I take this bad boy because it is bomb-proof. For its price, you cannot, in my opinion, beat it. Now, I've got other tents. I've got the Mongar 2. There's a review that I've done before on that one. I've got the Lanshan 1 Plus 4 season. I've got the Lanshan 2 Pro. I've got the OEX Bobcat 1. I've got a good range of tents which I use for different purposes, or however my whims are at the time. I've used this tent in good weather, I've used it in bad weather. This will always be my horrendously bad weather tent, and the reason for that is because, like I said, it is bomb-proof. I've got complete confidence in it, absolute complete confidence in it. It has done me well so far, and I'm certain it's going to do me well in the future. On 30 plus camps, this tent has never let me down. Dave, over there. Sorry. But it's heavy. Now, as you may know from my previous videos, I don't like heavy shelters, I don't like heavy packs, mostly because I've got fibromyalgia, I get exhausted very easily, and I get sore very easily. I don't want to carry a heavier tent than I absolutely need to, which is why I prefer to use my Lanshan 2 Pro or my Lanshan 1 Plus when I'm out on Dartmoor going on big hikes. This tent I tend to use when I'm not going to be travelling far from the car. So, for example, if I was to come here to Crowley Reservoir, it's less than 15 minutes walk to and from the car from here, or from the other spot that I generally camp at here. If I am going to Dartmoor, I won't be walking up tours with this tent. It's 2.1 kilograms in weight. To put that into perspective, my Lanshan 2 Pro is less than a kilo. My Lanshan 1 Plus is less than a kilo. This tent is more than twice the weight of those two tents, or more than the weight of both of those tents combined. It's heavy. The other reason why I don't like taking this tent out on anything other than really poor weather camps is because drying it, for me, can be a hassle. Because it's not a freestanding tent, it has to be pegged out to dry. Alternatively, me living in a third floor flat, I don't have a garage space, I don't have my own private covered garden or anything of the sort, so I have to rig up a washing line and dry it hanging from there in such a way that doesn't impede people's ability to walk up and down the stairs. So it's a bit of a nightmare for me to dry. So in summary, I love this tent, but I hate taking it out. It is an exceedingly reliable, strong tent, especially when you think of the cost of it. Compared to the cost of the tent, this cannot be beaten for how strong this tent is. It will take everything that you can throw at it, bad weather wise. It will take snow, it will take ice, it will take wind, it will take rain, it will take everything. It's a beast. I don't like the fact that it is so low to the ground. I don't like how uncomfortable it is to sit in, or as I am now, kind of sit out. I don't like that at all. It is hard for me in the morning, again having fibromyalgia, to get dressed inside this tent. Your range of mobility inside this tent is severely hampered by the sloping nature of it. You have to get changed right at the head of the tent, and by the time you've got a sleep mat in here as well, your overall headroom is significantly reduced. So getting changed, dressed inside this tent is a nightmare. I generally do it outside the tent, but I can only do that if it's not raining, which means that doesn't happen very often. So instead I just struggle. Pitching and packing this tent is dead simple. There's no complexity to it whatsoever. The only important thing from my experience is to make sure you use the inner ties that are on the fly sheet to tie it down to the poles before you peg it out. That's vital. It helps give the tent the proper shape and much more strength. It also reduces the flappiness of the tent, the noise of the tent in high winds. Dave, fuck off. Why do you have to be right by the camera? The noise of you going is going to be so noisy. So do I recommend this tent? Absolutely, without a doubt. Hands down, I would recommend this tent to everybody. This tent is highly recommended for anybody doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award. This tent is highly recommended for anybody who does any kind of hiking, camping in the woods, out in the moorlands, anywhere at all. It's a it's a particularly good stealth camping tent due to its colour and low profile. I've used this tent. I'm going to try carry on. I've used this tent on a number of stealth camps. I've used this tent everywhere. Up tours, down tours, beside the road, in the woods, on campsites. I love it. It's a brilliant tent. Who would I not recommend it for? Anybody who's a bit weaker like me. Anybody who struggles to carry a lot of weight, might want to think about something else, particularly when the tent is wet, when you've packed it up in the morning, because it is much heavier. It really holds the water in that fly sheet. If you can take the time to dry it out, brilliant. But in my experience of using it primarily as a wet weather tent, you don't get that opportunity. I also wouldn't recommend this tent to anybody who takes a larger dog or another human being with them on camps. It is not a true two-person tent. If you want a two-person tent, go out and buy a three-person tent. That's my recommendation. If you've got a little dog, like little Dave here, more than enough room for you, your pack and everything else. It's absolutely fine. So where can you buy this tent? Well, as I've already mentioned, Go Outdoors, Millets, Blacks, I believe. Is it Sports World or one of those sports shops that have just recently come into the fold as well? Amazon, eBay, pretty much everywhere. It's an easy tent to get hold of. When it comes to pricing, you will have to shop around. You will find that the price changes not only day by day, but also from shop to shop to shop. It is an easy tent to get cheaply, but you will find that if it is advertised cheaply, it will sell out very, very fast. The other person that I wouldn't recommend this to is somebody who absolutely hates the idea of an inner pitch first. One good thing about this tent though is that you can pitch it as a inner only. So if you do want to take it out on a particularly lovely day and just look up at the stars through the mesh, yeah, go for it. Why not? I've done that one time. Not an experience that I'm going to be repeating, nothing to do with the tent itself, just because that is not my style of camping. I don't really like that. I like having the fly sheet covering me up a little bit more. It makes me feel a little bit more secure. Other than that, yeah, go and buy it. It's a great tent. Fantastic. We like it, don't we, Dave? Dave, do you like this tent? You do, don't you? Tell him. You didn't hear that, but he did say, I love this tent. Anyway, on that note, we're going to pack it up and bugger off. If you've liked this review, please give me one of those thumbs up things. If you haven't liked it, please give me one of those thumbs down things. I'm not a professional reviewer by any standard. I know that my reviews are a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I'm giving you an honest opinion on this tent. If you want some more of these reviews, hit the, down there, the subscribe button. That's it, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. And by all means, leave me a comment. I do try really hard to reply to all comments. As videos get older though, it's easy to get lost in comments for older videos, but I always try to reply. You can also hit me up on Instagram if you want to PM me there and discuss the tent in any great detail. You're more than welcome. I'll probably be able to be a little bit more eloquent with my opinions on Instagram. Other than that, I'll see you all later. Dave, say bye. Ah, say bye. Bye. You're a dickhead. Get on.